try to correct people and be tactful and diplomatic in the way we do it, but we've got to do it. So just to free our own conscience, just to be true to ourselves, that's what a friend does. If you look up the word friend, you look it up. I mean, this is it. This is, family and friend. It's egalitarian. It's caring. It is correcting. It's like Thomas Jefferson said about patriotism. He said that dissent is the highest form of patriotism. Okay? And I would like to bring that in, by extension, bring that into this conversation about friendship. And when it comes to a friend, we have an obligation, a duty, a responsibility to dissent at times when we know that we're right about something. We learn through the school of hard knocks that we must believe this way. In order to have a pure heart, it's pure is complete. It is full. It is what it is, and it means being pure through and through. It can't be, you got a little impurity in there. It is pure all the way. And for our hearts to be pure, we've got to have goodwill toward humanity. We've got to want the best for not some people, but all people. That's the whole love your enemy thing. The only way you can have a pure heart is by loving your enemy. That means caring about them the way God does. He doesn't want them destroyed. He wants them to repent, to relent of their evil, and turn and get on the right path. Admit they've been deceived like the Apostle Paul, and have that, come to Jesus moment when they turn around and they do a 180. They say, there's no way. I would never in my right mind. I was deluded. God, forgive me. I was deceived. I believed the wrong way. Believing, being an elitist, that I'm better than anybody. Who in their right mind wants to be better than anybody? No, we just want to be as best as we can. We want to enjoy our lives. That's all we really want to do. We want to be happy. And there's a lot of components to being happy. That's a very broad term. We need safety. We need security. We need peace. We need joy. We need contentment. We need to be free. We need to be liberated. We need to be prosperous. We need comfort and encouragement. Okay? We need what we need. We want what we want. And God put those desires and wants and needs into us. This drives us. This propels us toward finding them and seeking, and going out and saying, and helping others that are lost. And we've got to do it. We've got to admonish people at times and correct them in whatever way God puts on our heart. But if you care about people, you care about people. You'll succeed. You're trying to do something good. You're trying to help people to see, look, this is what's not going to let you be happy. Because if you can't, go to heaven, if you can't inherit, the surface of the earth, and you got to go to this more painful place with these evil elitist hypocrites, because elitism is a form of hypocrisy. It's a double standard. Any tinge of it, okay, has to be removed from our hearts. And this is, why I see, the whole wage issue as such a big deal. Because you've got to understand, if you buy into this idea that it's somehow okay that you don't give a wage adjustment in light of the fact that your cost of living is going up because of market manipulation and price fixing, this collusion from these various special interest groups that are doing this and causing this, and then causing this chain reaction inflation. At least blame the right cause. Don't blame the effect. Okay, the effect is a cost of living adjustment. That's the justification. We know what came first. The inflation came first, and that's what created the need for a wage adjustment. Don't blame them. They're just trying to maintain a survival standard of living. Okay? Otherwise, they've got to go to the social welfare agencies, and then you're going to condemn those agencies and say, well, we know the government set it up with Clower and Piven. You know all these things, then understand what's going on here, how they're destroying our standard of living. Is through this wage disparity, okay? It just keeps falling. Its wages ever in decline. We'll have a third world country here, and you say you're opposed to it, but you're condoning it you can't do that. You not even a little bit. You can't do it. You can't. You've got to see this fight as one for humanity. equality, egalitarian, American principles. If you want to be a good American, you've got to be an egalitarian, and there's no in between there. You either are or you're not, and it's all the way. It's believe in equality, and you can't believe in a little inequality. That's not okay. You can believe 100% in individuality. That's a whole nother thing. I'm never going to be as good as a million different things than, a million different people are. And on and on and on. That's the way it works. We're all individuals, but what makes us equal is that we're equally loved and endowed by our Creator. It's in our Constitution. It's in our Bill of Rights to pursue happiness. And equality makes me happy, and I know it'll make you happy. I believe in it. I believe that's what God would put in all of our hearts. He would say this American principles are godly principles, egalitarian principles. This is the way out of the poverty. This is the way out of the crime because of the financial desperation. This is the way out of the warfare, the dubious warfare. This is the way to render our rulers, our illegitimate, cruel overlords irrelevant. This mean gaggle of merciless thugs, this New World Order cabal, these globalists, these monsters, these social Darwinians. They created this debt we're all living under. Don't you see? And they're walking around with all the loot. This is ridiculous. These people are despicable, disgusting, repugnant. There are not words harsh enough to describe how loathsome and miserable these people are. And this is where they will take us. Even if you're in a little way, you're in with them. There's only two sides. That's it. There's only two sides. That's why Jesus, over and over and over, he made this so clear. You've got to be on the right side. Violence can never be used offensively. And yet, look what we've got today. This whole idea now, it's going to preempt everything now. They create the terror atmosphere. They create the false flag. They create the war. It's good for business. 9/11. Understand the power and control, and these people are megalomaniacs. They're nutcases. They're insane psychotics. They're deranged, power-drunken, bloodthirsty freaks. I mean, you can say anything you want about the rulers of this world, but one thing you want to be sure is that you're not on their side. The way they rule is through violence. This is how they've gotten away with what they have all through the ages. They're willing to do things that normal people are not willing to do. But still, if you're a little bit in their camp by being an elitist, and that's being hypocritical, that is living outside the bounds, the tight bounds of the golden rule of treating others, thinking of others, believing about others the way that you want yourself thought about and believed about and done with, okay? That's it. Then you're going to that same dark place. Do you want to be in there? Even if you're going to be teaching all these wicked people, do you really want to go to hell? Do you know what it's going to be like in a place like that? I don't want to be there, man. I don't want to be there. And I'm a sinner. I'm like everybody else. I'm not saying that I'm perfect at all. But there's a distinction. I'm not wicked. You can't pay me to sin, to compromise my integrity. Okay? I might end up doing something foolish and paying for it, but woe to the person through whom the sin comes. It's much worse for them. Okay? And the point is that there's sin, and then there's wickedness. And you can sin without transgressing the golden rule. If you're not treating somebody in a way that you don't want to be treated. I mean, let's take, for example, the fact that, looking at porn is practically ubiquitous out there. What guy out there can say, oh, I've never looked at porn? What is porn? I mean, we can see all these images on the TV. I mean, ever since I was a little boy and seeing the flatbed trucks in Vietnam, heaped high, like so much refuse of these young men's bodies. And this is all okay. We don't need to censor this. We've got to get these people acclimatized to, thinking this is just the way it is. You're dung, you're refuse. We're trying to depopulate here. Social Darwinism, okay? It's good for business. It's good for the Wall Street bottom line. But, the idea of a man, actually looking at the beauty of God's creation through a woman, this is pornography. This is, so immoral and bad, so we're all trained to, so some bad thing. Well, it may well be sinful to be lustful, but I mean, it's kind of goofy. It's just, it's a fantasy, and it's not hurting anybody if a woman doesn't mind a man looking at her, I suppose. It's just, it's an uncomfortable topic, I suppose. But, in all honesty, it's a very pertinent topic to most men, and I don't know, women too. I guess, women enjoy the beauty of a man, and they want to see them sometimes. And I guess those images could be considered pornographic. And we're all a little deranged in that regard. We've got to understand our DNA is tainted. None of us know reality, not just in the existential sense of this monetary-based reality that we're all foisted and thrust into from birth, but we don't know those other things. We've kind of lost our way. I mean, look how we are about nudity, okay? Which one of us would feel comfortable walking around downtown naked? Not me. I'm the first guy to raise my hand. And I've got a beautiful body, but I'm just not immodest in that regard. I can't see it. I'm not an exhibitionist. I don't want anybody taking images of me and putting them on the internet. And it's not going to happen. It's my decision to be modest. But you see, maybe my modesty is, part of the sickness I have in just having tainted DNA. Because after all, look at every other creature out there. Would God make the human creature unique in the sense that, we have to be ashamed of our, private parts, let's say? Okay, well, why are we ashamed of it? Have we been trained, indoctrinated to be ashamed? What is it? It says in the Bible that, that happened. We were naked originally, without shame, I guess without lust, and then we learned it, by eating this fruit, whatever that metaphorical fruit was. I believe it was inbreeding. That we felt that, something wrong that did not feel right happened down there, and so we wanted it covered up. And to this day, we see how that it's so deeply and profoundly has permeated our culture that it is a big deal. It still is. I mean, you can offend people. I mean, they say, I've got children here. What are you doing? This guy's naked. Yeah, and I could see it myself. I can remember in my younger days, I was much more offended. I didn't want guys, flashing my wife. And this sort of thing used to happen sometime, I remember. And, drunk guy whips it out, takes a pee right in front of my wife. I'm sitting in my car. This kind of stuff happens. And it kind of, it's unnerving. You don't want this to happen, but hey, so what? I mean, it's not the end of the world. And, forgive and forget. I mean, I've done stupid things. And, but we make a big deal out of something like nudity. So we are twisted. It's, and that's beyond the money thing. I can't say that even if we had an ideal society tomorrow with, an end to prosperity, with an end of poverty and an end to the dubious war, an end to, all the crime that's being committed because of financial desperation, an end to the abortions, an end to the pornography and the prostitution, an end to the debt and all these things. I'm not saying we're not going to still have some hang-ups. We might well, and that's why it's written. I mean, it talks about being clothed in righteousness. That's the clothing that we, with these immortal bodies that, eventually we are to be given. The righteous will be given these immortal bodies, but it still talks about some form of clothing and this, these robes of righteousness or something. So apparently that thing about modesty may carry on. It's interesting. It's there's talk about marriage, and giving in marriage, and Jesus said, look, once you've got these new bodies, when you've been found worthy to get these imperishable bodies, you will be like the angels. It never says we'll be the angels, but the angels apparently don't marry or give in marriage. That the angels, being these eternal creatures, they're loving all the time toward one another, but they are not marrying and giving in marriage. So it doesn't mean we're not going to have genders, but what does it indicate? It just indicates that maybe the whole idea of population might be at an end. I don't know. I really don't know every detail. I mean, a lot of this, we as human beings may have some say-so. Well, God's going to say, how do you want it to be? Let's work together here and create the kind of perfect world that we all want. And so, that's one of those issues that we're going to have to deal with, because we have all psychological issues that deal with nudity. But as far as on a scale of bad and evil and wicked, I don't see it. But being sinful, I'd say, yeah, it is. It's not right. You shouldn't covet another man's wife. You shouldn't commit adultery. That's not treating others the way you want to be treated. So in that sense, yes, it's wrong. And if you sin, like Jesus said, you should gouge your eye out or cut your hand off. You'd be better off. King Solomon gave all these kind of warnings when it came to committing adultery. What a foolish man would do such a thing. And his own dad, King David, of course, with what he did was a horrendous sin. Bathsheba, apparently, King David was watching Bathsheba